standard is.
Right.
Because we wanted to.
Assimilate, and that's what he said Barnwell was trying to tell us tolerance about that. So it's like, we're trying to be like y'all.
In the north.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to First Unitarian Church of Toledo on June 16th, 2024. I'm Joe Moran, today's service associate, and student minister and seminarian Melissa Jeter will be leading the service today. Our music will be provided by music director Jeffrey Maxey, joined by our First Unitarian Choir. And see here, our story will be provided by Jenny Gottman. Our media team includes producer-director Walter McGee, Andy Gottman is on cameras, and David Strickler is on the soundboard. We are a church with no official doctrine or creed. Instead, we covenant to support one another in our individual search for truth and meaning. We welcome everyone as we sang in the opening song. If you're a visitor today, you'll notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with our principles and our sources. Please feel free to take one with you. There's also a yellow card that you may use to introduce yourself to us. If you include your email, we will send you news of our various activities. As you meet people today, please feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions that you might have. We also welcome those this morning that are joining us on YouTube virtually. Later in the service, I will invite you to attend our coffee and conversation social hour in Fellowship Hall, just down the hallway here to your left. It is one of the perks of making a Sunday service a regular part of your schedule when you attend in person.
In many Unitarian Universalist churches in our services, we light a chalice, a flame in a bowl that originated with the Unitarian Service Committee, using a lit chalice to indicate safe spaces in Europe during World War II. Shall we say the words for lighting our chalice together? The words will be on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world.
And now let us recite our covenant, which is on the screen in front of you here. This is not a creed, but what we share as a religious community and our work toward it. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
On our hearts, on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits. This weekend, I finally watched Origins, the film that portrays Isabel Wilkerson's book entitled Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent. As Juneteenth is arriving on the calendar, my mind has been wheeling around in the religious historical relationships that Unitarians had in social reform efforts with people whose descent is traced to the continent of Africa. From the book African American Religious History, a documentary Witness, edited by Milton C. Cernit. On April 11th, 1862, Congress passed a bill abolishing slavery in the District of Columbia. Shortly thereafter, President Abraham Lincoln received a visit from the Reverend David Alexander Payne, then presiding bishop of the Second Episcopal District of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, with headquarters in the District of Columbia. Payne urged Lincoln to sign the bill, was impressed with his real greatness and of his fitness to rule a nation composed of almost all races of the face of the globe, but left without any assurances after Lincoln signed the bill. On April 16th, Bishop Payne penned a welcome address, Welcome the Ransomed, that called to those who could now enjoy the boon of holy freedom. Payne was born to free parents. He was orphaned at 10 and raised in a Lutheran synod, and at 19 was principal of a school. Daniel Payne decided that the only difference between master and slave was superior knowledge. Education was the key to Black liberation. He left the Lutherans and joined Richard Allen of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. There, he was an advocate for the education of the emancipated and was well positioned during his upbringing to make requests of support of this education. Northern Unitarians, who embraced social reform through education, were some of the people who donated funds or political support for Payne's education efforts. One of those people was John F. Warr, we know the Warr Lecture, a Unitarian minister in Baltimore, who is noted as lending his financial power to Payne. And after some persuasive efforts, then Senator Charles Sumner, also a Unitarian, lent his political power towards the educational mission of Daniel Alexander Payne. As my heart aches due to the current wars and interpersonal conflicts, I know I don't have any answers. I only share with you what I have witnessed, that is, that every group that has immigrated voluntarily or involuntarily, European, Asian, South, or Central American, African, has had to some degree assimilate to survive in this country. Early Black sociologist E. Franklin Frazier argued that the problem was between race, class, and caste. Isabel Wilkerson says that it is caste, and more argue that it is race. What I see is that we are still debating degrees of humanity and seeking who we might still treat as less than due to our own short-sightedness. That short-sightedness also reflects our own trauma. With Spirit, I hope that we see that all of us need mercy, justice, and compassion. And all want to be seen and heard for who we say we are. This is the holy glue that will bind this faith eternally, despite the limits of historical context. I say this holy glue is less about orthodoxy and more about orthopraxis. Orthopraxis, what you practice. The orthopractice of love universal that wields time. May we move forward as Unitarian Universalists who have deciding that loving is most important. And now we will have Jenny Gottman and our story.
Good morning. I would like to invite all of my young friends who would like to come join me up here for story time. There you are. Yes. Turn and read. All right, awesome. All right, so I have a question for you guys. Raise your hand if you have heard of the Underground Railroad. Me? Raise your hand out there if you've heard of the Underground Railroad. Now you guys, Isaiah and Serenity, have you heard of the Great Dismal Swamp? Nope. How many of you out there have heard of the Great Dismal Swamp? Somewhat less. Nice, okay. The Great Dismal Swamp is a piece of land, and you can see on the screen there, it covers part of North Carolina and part of Virginia. And the swamp itself is really, really big. It's about the size of Rhode Island. There's an island right in the middle of the swamp that's about 20 acres big, which is about the size of 15 football fields, or about half the size of the Toledo Zoo. Have either of you ever been to a swamp? Nope, no. Has anybody out there ever tried to, yes, Jalen, have you ever tried to walk through swampland? No. One person has tried. That person is very intrepid. Swampland is very, very difficult to get through. And the Great Dismal Swamp is even harder. It took a group of researchers 8 hours and 4 machetes to go 200 feet. So that would be like if it took us 8 hours to get to the back of the church. And it's not only walking through there that makes it difficult, it's also the animals that live there. There are panthers and bears and rattlesnakes and water moccasins. So I think no matter how much we wanted to get to the back of the building, we wouldn't try to get there if we had to dodge panthers and bears along the way. Despite that impassable swamp and the bears and the panthers, for about 200 years, a whole society of people lived on that island in the middle of the Great Dismal Swamp. Can you try to guess or imagine why people might want to live in the middle of that very difficult land? Anybody out there want to guess?
Hard to be found.
Hard to be found. Perhaps impossible to be found. Yeah. Most of the people who lived on the swamp were black people who had escaped slavery. There were also some Native Americans who were escaping white settlers. There were some white people who, on the whole, were trying to escape the law. Today we call those kinds of groups of people maroons. And maroon is a color, and it also means a group of people, primarily people of color, who have escaped slavery and formed their own villages and societies. And sometimes, like in the Great Dismal Swamp, those people would form families, get married, have children. And so people did that in the Great Dismal Swamp for about 200 years. Today, we are just really starting to learn more about these maroons. The wild animals and the impassability of the swamp helped people to survive, and it also made it possible for people to settle down, build houses, plant fields. They grew corn and squash. They hunted wild hogs and birds. And there was a freshwater lake in the spring, too. People still chose to leave it sometimes. People who lived on the outskirts of that island would sometimes leave and go to the main part of Virginia or North Carolina. They did that to work and to find things that they couldn't make in the swamp, things like clothes and nails and knives. Some people were born on the island and lived there their whole lives. The Great Dismal Swamp was not a secret even 200 years ago. Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote about the Great Dismal Swamp. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote about it. And sometimes people who were hunting down people who had escaped would say, I believe this person might be in the Great Dismal Swamp. George Washington at one point built a canal through the Great Dismal Swamp, or rather had it built. And then it looks like the people on the swamp, on the island in the swamp, just sort of disappeared. So as the Civil War ended, people started slowly just moving off of the island, living in more hospitable places. And it looks like people just sort of forgot about the swamp. I never heard about it until I was a grown-up. A Unitarian minister named Hugo Leeming wrote a book about the swamp in 1979, and now, pretty recently, scientists have started to excavate it to find artifacts of the people who lived there. So this is a question that is just to think about, not to answer. Why do you think it is that so many people have heard of the Underground Railroad and so comparatively few people have heard of the Great Dismal Swamp? Thank you.
As our children and their teachers leave for religious education, let's sing them on their way. Excuse me. We are going to do opening hymn number 118. Thank you. Okay, so the children have already left. Just a little early. No need to worry about singing them out. We will go to our centering music, and Jeffrey will play that. I Know I Can by Dennis Hamilton.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though trouble waits at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, and my brother in my song. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though my journey is long, but my destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know I can go on. I know you can go on. Oh, I know we can go on.
I want to invite you into a moment of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. If you can just kind of breathe it out, shake it out. Spirit of life, I find you in those humble places, the quiet, still places where I am held in a love greater than myself. You are the wind in my breath, the fire in my soul, the subtle heartbeat of creation all around me. Oh God, your love is unimposing yet firm and steadfast, present to all those who would know your peace. You challenge me in my arrogance and move me to listen deeply when I fail, as I always do. To see the fuller picture. Spirit of love, you find the gentle words to speak life into me and hold me when all else around me and in me feels broken. You remind me that I am loved and saved just as I am. Your salvation is found in living life loved. Remind me of who I am. O holy mystery, help me to see you in the small, everyday moments where you are found. Grant me the wisdom to listen for you and seek you in those likely and unexpected places. Amen. And let us observe 1 moment, 1 minute of silence.
Before I share this reading, How We Belong by Alex Jensen, about 1 year ago, I was leaving the church, and a young man was following me as I left. He had been at the service, and he stopped me and said, "What do you believe in at that church? What's your beliefs?" He said, I just don't understand. Now, I don't know what his expectation was. He didn't see a cross. He didn't see a lot of the symbols that you associate with a Christian church. And I think that's probably what he was expecting. We have a chalice, and of course we have the chalice up behind me. I handed him a card that I think is in the pew rack that lists our principles. And he was seemed to be in a hurry, and I was going somewhere as well, so I didn't get a further discussion with him about what we believe in. I think people sometimes are confused that come here, visitors. They're just not exactly sure what to make of us. But I do think that this reading here is a good one, because sometimes we can answer that question in a negative way. You know, what we are not, what we do not believe in. So sometimes people think we can believe anything we want, which is not true. We can and do believe many different things about life's biggest questions, about God, the greater mystery, and what happens to us when we die. But you can't be a Unitarian Universalist if you don't agree about some important points of our faith. You can't be a UU if you cling to prejudice or oppressive views of other people. If in any way you believe someone or others are somehow inferior or anything less than human beings. You can't be a UU if you can't tolerate and invite big questions or critically examine what you believe and why you believe it. You can't be a UU if you fundamentally believe there's only one path, one spiritual way of meaning of life. If you cling to just one set of beliefs, dogmas, creeds, and shut out the possibilities and offerings of other traditions, other religious traditions that are different from your own, you cannot be a Unitarian Universalist. As wide as our welcoming embrace is, there are some things that are non-negotiable for us. And these are the inherent worth and dignity of every person, no matter who they are, where they come from, what their beliefs have been, what their behaviors have been. You cannot be a Unitarian without critical thinking about ourselves and our beliefs and how the world, the bounty of the world's traditions have influenced us and provide continuing sources of wisdom. No, you can't be a Unitarian Universalist and believe just anything you want. You can believe in a lot of things, but there's some fundamental things that bind us together, and that is who we are.
Thank you for that reading, Joe. My name is Melissa Jeter, and my sermon title is My UU Theology and Pluralism. I am grateful to be here as a guest in my home pulpit, my home church pulpit. Always grateful to be here. Thank you. Today, I hope to take you on my intellectual and affective journey that began with courses on the Dead Sea Scrolls, Paul, apostle to the Gentiles, pastoral care, and interreligious understanding. For some of you, this is probably like, oh, this is what Melissa has been doing. This is why we haven't seen her. On this journey, I want to talk about Unitarian Universalism and pluralism. I want to share my personal UU theology with you and how it informs my pluralist engagement. So I am going to discuss what pluralism is from the perspective of Diane Eck, Harvard scholar, while at the same time pointing out the ideas from Unitarian Universalism that appear to resonate with her work. I have more questions than answers because I am struggling to make meaning of this intellectual and affective journey. Unitarian Universalism has its roots in Christianity. And I think it is fair to say that we still live in a world that is dominated by Western Christianity. Take a moment and consider the holidays for which your employer gives everyone time off, or the days that general operations of town just shut down. Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. Businesses close on Sunday, not the Sabbaths of Muslims or people who practice Judaism. Sunday may be a day when alcohol can or cannot be sold, or the hours are limited. Also, of course, there are faith-based organizations that provide services to people who need food or medical care within and outside of the United States. I'm sure you can think of these situations, and it is not my intention to cause discomfort at thinking about it. So let's just take a moment and breathe in peace and breathe out love, as the hymn says. I took a couple classes earlier this year, one on the Dead Sea Scrolls and one on the Apostle Paul. I won't go into detail about each, but get right to the places where my heart and mind still linger. From the course on the Dead Sea Scrolls, I learned that ancient Judeans had a lot of diversity. Then, in the course on Paul, I learned that he spoke to Jews who lived in the Roman Greco world about how to be one people in a movement centered around Jesus that eventually became Christianity. You see, the people of the ancient world, I learned, were more diverse than I had ever been described to me before. Apparently, Christian church fathers like Jerome and Augustine were also without awareness of the degree of diversity when they spoke about Judeans. However, that lack of information did not prevent them from identifying customs of what was or was not Christian. What was not Christian was called heresy. Moreover, the concept we know as religion emerges from this sorting of people and practices. This sorting process is called heresiology. It's a study, heresiology. The wheels in my head were turning. In my daily meditation, all I could think about was wheels. Wheels of mills, wheels on cars, wheels of time, history flowing through my mind. The concept, religion, is a Western Christian perspective? So in order to create an identity based on this movement of diverse human beings living in the Roman Greco world, the church fathers found that it was really important to establish who was and who was not Christian. Then I was reminded of a quote: "There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about." I wanted to hold on to this narrative and take this history into account with my next course, Interreligious Understanding. At the same time, I was working as a chaplain intern in a Catholic hospital. Here, I was discovering how my personal UU theology informed providing spiritual care to patients who may or may not be Christian or Muslim or have any faith. So what is my personal UU theology? I embrace that we, human beings, need each other to help each other make meaning of the emotional anxieties that come about from this journey of living. Just living life, lots of anxiety. My Unitarian Universalist identity is in my practice. How do I engage as a Unitarian Universalist? How does my Unitarian Universalist theology inform pluralism? My experience as a chaplain may demonstrate that I listen and pray well with people of faiths unlike my own. So now I want to focus on pluralism. Diane Eck of Harvard Divinity School is a scholar who studies about religious pluralism. She's not the only one, okay, but she's good. According to Eck, pluralism takes the position that truth is not an exclusive or an inclusive possession of any one community. Different understandings and visions of God, or if you will, ultimate reality, are elements of the identity of pluralism. Unitarian Universalism is very open and appears pluralistic to me. But is that really so? Eck continues that a person who is pluralist recognizes the limits of their own worldview and is curious enough to learn the view of others as they understand it. This, in my thinking, goes beyond the golden rule, by the way. It certainly is different from trying to fit the beliefs of another into your own. This happens when people assume a faith or a philosophy has a God when they don't. For example, how many people have heard someone say that Buddhists pray to Buddha? That seems to me as not only a misunderstanding, but a way of including people into how you perceive religion. As a chaplain, asking a person about their faith tradition was the time in which I was mutually engaged in seeking truth of what they thought was the meaning of their illness or the death of a loved one. In most cases, the person in the hospital was not Unitarian Universalist, was not African American. Yet showing up and being present was a loving act. Engaging in pluralism with another is about mutuality and truth-seeking. Pluralism, according to Eck, says God is bigger than our knowledge and understanding, and ultimate reality would be. One particular view of God is not universal, though there is both transcendence and particularity. Unitarian Universalists are free and responsible to search for meaning. Diane Eck says that human practices circle around God or ultimate reality. So religions different from those who center God or ultimate reality cannot be measured by their degree of distance from their center. I can't measure your religion, what you believe, what's ultimately important to you, by my standards. Pluralism requires that I appreciate religions on their own terms. Pluralism is a yes to or acknowledgement of different faiths, and it requires engagement. It requires engagement. So what does it take to change from tolerance to pluralist? Insist that there is a centering value or compelling life truth. My UU theology and practice as a chaplain means that I meet people in their grief and ask them how their faith provides meaning to them. I listen to their meaning making. Collectively, as Unitarian Universalists, how have we changed from tolerance to pluralists? Where is our engagement? Secondly, there must be some way to which you are committed. Having no committed or a laissez-faire approach is a way to get stuck. What I commit to, working as a chaplain who is a Unitarian Universalist, is showing up for another person in their suffering because I am committed to serving the human condition. We need each other, and this is something that I am not just committed to, but convicted of. Love is a center of my commitment. And my commitment is expressed through Unitarian Universalism. Pluralism does not make a new religion, as X says, flattening out differences. Differences are to be respected. With pluralism, a person is situated in a particular community and is willing to understand another, not take on or deny their own. I found very sacred moments with patients, with faiths unlike my own. My faith informs me that these faiths exist and thus are inherently worthy. It may be something that's hard for us because we look at people and say, how in the world? But it gives meaning to that person. And in that moment, when somebody is in grief or they are dying, it's just not helpful. It's just not helpful to say, well, let me tell you about what I believe. Let me tell you what I really think. How many people have been told you going to hell for believing what you believe? And how helpful was that? All people of faith have joys and suffering. Suffering is a part of the human condition. When I think of the important truths that faith traditions carry, I think of the first noble truth of Buddhism, dukkha, meaning life is suffering. The other truth that has been useful to me is that of right livelihood, of doing work that is not harmful to me or to anyone else. Here's where I have struggled because even though I have spent what feels like a lifetime vocationally in social and community services and women's shelters or advocating for poor people, I find that as I descend deeper into this work, I have experienced pain just the same as the people for whom I would advocate. Pain is pain. I also want to be liberated from the systems that oppress. Yet to live even my modest life, I consider what pain and harm my life may cause. I don't have any answers. I started by saying that I wanted to share my intellectual and affective journey with you as I talk about how my personal Unitarian Universalist theology informs my pluralist engagement. I also said that I have more questions than I have answers because I am struggling to make meaning of this intellectual and affective journey. I want to know how the dominant religion of Western Christianity formed. Like a child, I asked, why? And I thought you said, I'm curious and open as a chaplain. I never questioned the faith of the person for whom I was there for. Being present with them is not helpful. It's just not helpful. I'm faithful to Unitarian Universalism because I can have my particular expression. It's not universal. It's my particular expression of that which deeply connects all beings without needing to deny another faith. We don't need to deny somebody else what keeps their wheel of life turning. It may be math for you. That's okay. My faith identity has emerged through the practice of centering love and commitment. So be it. Amen. I say, blessed be.
Thank you, Melissa. It's offering time, and we're returning to the practice of passing the plate. The challenge is we're going to try it without ushers. One basket for each side of the aisle, and you in the congregation, please pass the basket along. We have some gaps here, so you may need to stand up and pass it. When the baskets reach the back of the sanctuary, there'll be a designated person to take them into the office. If the basket misses you, we still have one in the lobby, so you can leave your offering on the way out to coffee hour. If you have cash and want that credited to your contribution, you might put it in an envelope that you can find in the pew racks in front of you. Put your name on it, and if you just give a check, just note on the memo line how you want the funds directed. There are other ways to give. You can either see the QR code here for the one for Venmo. Another way is going to our website. You can see that on the screen, uutoledo.org, and click on Give. Then on online giving, you can mail a check to our address, First Unitarian Church at Toledo 3205, Glendale, Toledo, Ohio 43614. We are a self-supporting congregation, and we are very grateful for all of your contributions.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing
It's the coming soon part of our service where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week. We give you some announcements. We also let you know what's up for right after the service. On Sunday, June 23rd, we will not have our usual service in the sanctuary. Instead, we'll be in Fellowship Hall, watching the service that is put on for General Assembly. At 9:45, in lieu of our usual spiritual forum discussion, we'll have a potluck breakfast. Please bring a dish to share, and please be sure that the dish is already prepared and ready to serve. The kids will have breakfast in Fellowship Hall with Jenny or with their families if they insist, and then we'll go to class when service begins. We hope lots of people turn out for this special potluck and service.
And for the next 2 weeks, we continue the chair yoga class in Fellowship Hall. That's Wednesdays at 1 p.m. The cost is $5 per class. The next Unitarian Action Outreach event is on Wednesday, which is Juneteenth, the national holiday celebrating the freedom of all enslaved persons in the United States. The event will take place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Smith Park, 998 Dorr Street, adjacent to the Mott Library. There's plenty of free parking available. Part of the event will be to encourage those attending to register and vote in upcoming elections. There will be uniformed Civil War reenactors will be present, representing the 5th Regiment of the United States Colored Troops that fought in the Civil War to help assist in freeing those enslaved. Please put Wednesday, June 19th on your calendars and start thinking of people you might invite to this event. Plan now to attend. I know a lot of work has gone into this, and I want to recognize Gwen Wilson back there and Judy Pascalis for all the effort they put into this. So please spread the word, bring family and friends. We hope to see you. The final coming soon entries for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after we've finished our service, and then our congregational responsibility of our annual meeting for coffee, conversation, and social conversation.
And now is a time that we will send the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.